we kind of, or at least my thoughts, away from the political, more, and it's a fairly disputed idea in politics. I don't think it's very. It's not like super important. It's not like highly debated at this point. I don't think, it's not something that is like an important, it needs to be settled debate. But I think the idea itself is really interesting and has implications outside of politics that are more interesting.
How so? Tell us more.
Well, the first thing I thought of, because when you told me about this, you described it as in politics, and so that's where I started from. But I was thinking of it less as in the beliefs, less that they line up, even though there's some, I guess, and the actions of extremely opinionated, or people that are extremely sure that they're right,
Yeah.
Of kind of the more dogmatic you are as a person, the more like other dogmatic people you are. And I think it doesn't necessarily apply, at least the way that I've been thinking, like it's not the same as being just committed to something, being committed to things doesn't make you like other people who are committed to things any more than just you're both committed to something, which doesn't tell you very much because everyone's probably committed to something.
Yeah.
It doesn't tell you very much. But once you start becoming so entrenched in what you think is right, and you're willing, I think especially once you're willing to hurt people, for what you think is right, or what you believe is true, then it starts becoming a little more dangerous, I think. And you start becoming probably like the people that you really hate, but they're also willing to hurt other people for what they think,
Right. Yeah, and extremist Islam on, like the fascist side and the communist side. And throughout history, I think we've seen, politics and religion tend to be like the most obvious examples of this, right? It's like,
Yeah.
If you step back and kind of look at, if you take away the theory or the things that people are preaching, there's not that much of a difference between a hardcore preaching atheist and a hardcore preaching priest. Like, and personality and the way they approach people and situations are actually pretty similar. They're just preaching opposite sides of the same coin. So, but they fight just as hard. And in the political one, throughout history, I think everybody is quick to be like, religion, to do, because it's Mao and Stalin and Hitler, and so I think it's interesting that the same level of, like you said, commitment and attachment to your way of thinking, if taken to the extreme, leads to similar results.
Yeah. I found this is from. This is again coming from.
Hold up. Our Instagram live is paused. So, can you check that really fast? Our Wi-Fi.
Just turn off my Wi-Fi.
Oh yeah, you could just stream it on Tyler's data.
Do you know how to do it on the 10?
Hi everybody on YouTube. Thanks for joining us. Having some technical issues with the live stream, and let us know what you think. We'd love to hear you guys' opinions and take on it. And yeah, bear with us while we fix the Instagram
technical difficulties. We'll be right back.
And you can always go to our show in probably like 2 or 3 days. We'll post this on iTunes and Spotify and all that jazz
without the technical difficulties.
And we hit a record. We had 2 viewers there on YouTube for a minute. So 2 live viewers.
Joe Rogan, here we come.
Luckily, we have editing software, so this will be fixed.
Easy peasy. So this quote I found is again coming from the political side, but applies pretty well to the overall general idea I think we're talking about. This is by reformist Muslim don't know if I'm butchering this name, but Majid Nawaz. He said he's kind of in support of the political horseshoe. As the political horseshoe theory attributed to Jean-Pierre Fay highlights, if we travel far left enough, we find the very same sneering, nasty, and reckless bully boy tactics used by the far right. The two extremes of the political spectrum end up meeting like a horseshoe at the top, which to my mind symbolizes totalitarian control from above. In their quest for ideological purity, Stalin and Hitler had more in common than modern neo-Nazis and far-left agitators would care to admit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and I think it's interesting too because people all the time, sometimes I think people confuse communism and fascism. You know, it's like,
Right.
oh, the Nazis were communists, and then it's like, well, they were fascists. And then like same with Stalin and Mao, and you know, it's once you get into those extremes, it is actually pretty hard to tell. Wait, what difference is there between those two regimes? Even though like ideologically they kind of preach or come at it from a different approach, the methods that they use are unfortunately similar practices.
Yeah, and I guess someone who's in support of communism would probably say more that, well, those people didn't practice. They never surrendered power from the government to the people and things, but that doesn't. I don't know. It still seems to show that it just didn't, even if it didn't work out exactly how it was supposed to, trying to go for the
Yeah. So there's also a lot of people out there who say that this theory is like totally bonk. And they have their own reasons, just like everybody. But I think it is interesting in politics too, because politics, just like everybody. But I think it is interesting in politics too, because politics especially, and religion, it's one of those things where everybody really wants you to like identify yourself. You know, it's like, oh, I am a this, which means I fall into this camp and have these beliefs and blah, blah, blah. And it was in Nassim Nicholas Taleb's book, Anti-Fragile, where he talked about how the closeness of a community or your proximity to people essentially actually defines more of how you feel towards them politically. And why that's important. And I think in the United States, it's the government is actually set up pretty intelligently in that regard, in the sense that you have a city and each city has a mayor, and each region has some, people who are in charge of that. And then you have senators and representatives from the state. And that's really important because what applies to us here in Utah does not necessarily work or apply to somebody who lives in the heart of New York City. Just even like geographically, logistically.
Right.
And he said, I consider myself at the federal level, I'm a libertarian. At the state level, I'm a Republican. In my community, I'm a Democrat. And in my house, I'm a socialist. Which I think is pretty clever because it's really true. Like, if you think of your house and the politics that reign there, it's actually generally pretty
well said thought right there. I'm going to remember where I was going with that. Just any second now. It's going to be so worth it.
All right, I want to check really fast YouTube.
I
want to see who our one viewer is. If we can. I guess we can.
That's a good thing.
2 viewers on Instagram, but nobody said anything yet. We kind of came into this knowing that it would be a shorter topic. But we'd be interested to hear what you guys think and how you flip and go atheist. And vice versa. Seem like really strong atheists flip and go religious. And it's interesting to see because I feel like I have seen it, in my N=1 life study experiments, that people generally do tend to like preach similar to how they were on the flip side. So it's an interesting idea to think about. Like maybe there's some factor of a person being committed to a certain level to whatever.
Yeah, you can be. Well, I like your example of like atheist to religious, or religious like very religious to very atheist, or very atheist to very religious, where you switch to completely opposite like ideologies, but you as a person, you as a character, or a personality, you can still retain the extreme element. It's just you've moved your extreme belief from one thing to the other. But like, but in the end, then how much have you really changed?
Hmm. You're like the same position in the army for a different camp, kind of.
Yeah.
A general to a general, just on the opposite side.
Hmm. Yeah.
You as a person aren't really actually that different.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah. And this applies the most to where we love labels the most, because it creates kind of that us versus the root cause, and which is the effect. But it's still, it produces, when you get these, like, you get to that extreme point of belief, comes kind of on a mess. Like, this is what I believe, and you believe something different, so we have to be separate. I have to crush what you believe.
Right.
And I think that's why so many like political discussions. That's why Facebook is like a joke when it comes to anything politics, and everyone is constantly jokes about it, because it's true. As soon as you bring up, especially if it's something hot topic like abortion or immigration, you know, where most people probably aren't that informed, but they're very opinionated,
Mm-hmm.
and they immediately jump in. No, this is why my view is exactly right. Like, no, this is why you're murdering a person, or no, well, this is why you're just taking away the rights of the woman, or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
from either side.
And generally, they jump to like name calling
Yeah,
or attacking you like emotionally rather than discussing the issue.
Right. Exactly. Like, exactly. Like with abortion, like, oh, well, you're a murderer, or you're taking away basic rights, or blah blah blah. Which both of those might be true. I don't know. It depends on what you think about abortion. It seems to me like anywhere, when everyone, because if you're already so committed to where you're at,
right?
You're already on the. If you're at this point of extreme, it's going to take a lot to shake that. And maybe there are things where we should be, hardline extreme about, but I don't know. I mean, even then, self-defense, Like, how many things are there really, especially when it comes to, like, morality, that we can be hardline, this is never okay, or this is always okay, and not have counterexamples that make you a little bit squeamish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What was the book we read earlier for our book club? The Righteous Mind.
Oh, yeah.
That was an interesting book. It talked about that. Like, he said it's like a lot of morality really comes down to essentially some level of religious or spiritual beliefs, because in the end, it's like, unless you believe that there are like higher laws or something, you can almost always come up with an exception to the rule. A man's wife is dying of cancer, and he doesn't have drug war and steal the medicine, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like you can always realize that you base your beliefs and you're more XYZ, and usually that's going to be like a spiritual or religious foundation of some sort. It's like if you just look at everything through the lens of, well, we're just animals running around on the face of the earth, and whatever, it's like, it's pretty easy to be like, well, if that's true, then what's wrong with like murder and stealing and rape and all that? Yeah.
I don't know if it has, like, more is just you have to have
more of like you have to have essentially some innate belief in higher laws, right? That are like either this is what's good for the community, this is what's good for XYZ. But it almost as we're evolved to like have that innate sense of right and wrong in a certain way because of our culture or whatever, it essentially is going to boil back down to that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I think that there are definitely stances you can take, like, you can say, like, it's hard to defend. We're trying to defend, um, moral beliefs basically on, on the species level? Is it because we're all human, or which has a lot of problems itself, or is it because we're rational, which has a lot of other problems? Or, is it all these different things? And I'm not done learning about this stuff. There's a lot to learn. But in a lot of these issues, I end up being pretty moderate the more I learn about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, um, with like the abortion debate, the more I read about it, the more I was pretty moderate. Where I was like, there are some circumstances where it's permissible, and I think it's always like a loss, but there's circumstances where it's permissible, and then there's circumstances where you need like a really good reason to say no, you still can't abort, even if it's going to kill the mom and the baby. It's wrong,
Right.
which most people I think